Our students. Today we are going to discuss a very interesting topic about psychosexual stages of the development. So before starting this, I just have one question with you all. How many of you think that childhood experience reflects our future personality? Okay, well said. Okay. So can anyone guess who has given this concept of psychosexual stages of the development? Oh, wow, good. Sigmund Freud, who was a renowned psychologist and neurologist. We will be discussing it later on. So first, I just want to brief you about what Freud has given the principles. So let's discuss. The first principle is called id, which is based on the pleasure. The second comes your ego, that is based on the reality principle. The third comes your superego, which is based on the principle. Now let's understand all this with an example. So let's understand it, which is a pleasure principle. So it is like an inner child. So it is biological. So I want this toy. I want this toy right now only. That is the reason which understand the concept of it. Ego. I can take this toy later on, maybe tomorrow. If we talk about the superego, I want this toy, but I will not steal this toy. So here is your moral principle. So now the next concept given by Freud was Freud discussed about the topography of mind. So he discussed about the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious. Now let's understand this. Conscious is basically your actions, the present, the thoughts you are having right now. Like for example, I want to eat the chocolate right now. So this is your state of the conscious mind. So let's talk about the subconscious mind. So that is, I want to ride a bicycle. So whatever the habitual and reflexes you are having, that comes under the subconscious mind. And the unconscious, this is very important, given by the Freud, because this is the deepest level of the mind, and it states basically your feelings, your emotions, and your repressed thoughts. So when we talk about the psychosexual stages of the development, we focus keeping in mind the principles and the topography of the mind. Now let's start with the PPT. Okay, so this is about the psychosexual stages of the development. So he is Sigmund Freud. So let's talk about who was Sigmund Freud. So Sigmund Freud was the Australian neurologist and the founder of the psychoanalysis. Then he developed some of the influential theories which we discussed, like the unconscious mind, the defense mechanism. So this was the basic, like he was very renowned in the personality theories. His work has a profound impact on psychology, psychiatry, and even in today's world. If you see, the therapies like free association, psychodramas, are all the concept has been taken from the Freud's psychoanalysis theory. So now, before starting the stages of psychosexual development, let's understand about the major key terms. Now, what is libido? So libido is a kind of energy, like force, which is going to understand the pleasure seeking. The second very important part Freud has discussed about erogenous zone. So which is the specific area of the body that are focused on the pleasure during the each stages. Fixation. So fixation is a kind of a defense mechanism. So if any of the stage when you have the over gratification or under gratification, then a fixation arises and we are into the unresolved conflicts. Now conflicts, this is also very important. Psychological conflict in which each stage present unique conflicts that the child must navigate. So when we are talking further about the different stages of psychosexual development, and if there is a conflict, it is going to reflect in your personality, and if there is no conflict, then you will be a healthy individual. Okay, so now this table is very important. So when you think as a exam point of view also, so in your answer you can create this kind of a table. If a question can come, says analyze the psychosexual stages of the development, this is very important. Let's understand the first stage, that is the oral, which start from 0 to 18 months, and the erogenous zone that we talk about is the mouth, and the focus is on sucking, biting, feeding and breathing. What is the potential adult characteristics in the future? That will be, if oral fixation is there, then the smoking, overeating, talkative, independent. We will be going to discuss one by one in detail. So the anal stage comes from 18 months to 3 years. The erogenous zone is anal, and here your key focus is on the bowel movement, that we can say the toilet training as well. So here are the two personalities. Then phallic, that is from 3 to 6 years. The erogenous zone is genitals, and this is very interesting, we will be going to cover it soon. So latency, which is 6 years to puberty, and there is no erogenous zone because this is basically the age of the puberty, and focus is on social skills, learning, the peer relationship and all. And the last one comes the genital, which understand the puberty age and the maturation of the sexual drive. So now we will take one by one. So now we talk about the oral stage, that is from 0 to 18 months. So if, let's take an example, if there is a conflict in weaning, the shift from complete to dependence on the caregiver for the nourishment. So let's understand with an example. So suppose if a child who is on the feeding and doesn't get the on time the hunger demand and all, so what happens in the future if the need is overly stimulated or not satisfied, then there is a rise of the fixation. So oral incooperative, there is a behavioral problem which basically desire to the swallow, or like the feeling of the guiltiness, the feeling of different things, like this kind of personality in future can resist to the smoking, chewing and biting also. Next stage comes the anal stage. So here we talk about the anus as an erogenous zone, and when the fixation arises, what happens? So anal retentive is basically when very harsh, if suppose there is a child who is having a toilet training, and if a very strict toilet training is given, then what happens? The anal retentive personality is developed, which harsh or overly strict toilet training can lead to individuals who are neat, orderly, controlling and stingy. But in opposite case, anal explosive, that is very lenient kind of toilet training. So here what kind of a personality the individual develop? He develop a messy, disorganized and rebellious. So you can relate, like if you see your siblings and anyone who is having a toilet training. So now you can analyze this Freud theory in the practical perspective. The third comes the phallic stage, which is basically the awareness of the gender. So now the children are able to understand their genitals and all. So there are two concepts, basically the Oedipus complex and the Electra complex. So the unconscious sexual desire for the mother and the feeling of rivalry towards the father. And Electra is basically the unconscious sexual desire for the father and feelings of rivalry towards the mother. So now when you see the daughters are always close to the father and the boys are always close to the mother. So that is the stage where this fixation occurs. So what happens, that if there is a kind of a conflict in this stage, it can lead to the issues like self-esteem, authority, relationship and maybe the feelings of inadequacy. The next comes the latency stage, where there is no erogenous zone, because here the child is able to interact with their peer group and they have the social urges as well. So the children focus on developing the relationship with the peers, mastering with them, how to communicate with them, and generally it is the calm and the stable period of the psychosexual development. Last stage comes the genital stage, which focus on the maturity of sexuality. So here the intimate relationship between a male and female is bonded. So at this stage, the person is aware of focus on intimacy, reproduction and contribution to the society. So fixation from earlier stage can still influence the nature of adult in the, so when we talk here about the fixation in future, there is a problem in the relationship, there can be a problem in the sexual relationship as well. So these were the 5 stages discussed about the psychosexual development. Freud theory was not accepted overall. So there were a lot of criticism as well, because many theories says that learning is through social. The things we are surrounded with the environment, the things we are getting it in the environment, that is based on the theory. So here the Freud has totally having a criticism. So let's take, the first was the lack of empirical support and the scientific verifiability, because there was no experiment, no practical thing was done on the children. The second point comes the overemphasis on the sexuality as the primary motive. So the Freud has overly emphasized on the sexual desire. The culturally and historical bias, obviously because he was very biased having the culture, so he mostly focused on the Western and no other studies being done in the cultural. The limited focus on the female development, often criticized for being on the male centered path and difficult to test and validate. Now, if we take a Freud legacy in future, so despite all this criticism, Freud was known for this unconscious mind, free association, defense mechanism, and still in psychology, Freud is one of the renowned persons. So he introduced the concept like we already discussed about it, and he provided the framework for understanding certain personality traits. While not in universally it is accepted today, but still it is a foundation theory of psychology. So in conclusion, summing up, we can say that the Freud was one of the renowned psychologists, and these psychosexual stages of the development, it's totally focused on the childhood experience, and in future if there is any kind of conflict in these stages, there is a personality disorder or the behavioral disorders. So that is the reason in today's world also, whenever a person who is going for any therapy, starting point we do is about the case history and we talk about the childhood experience. So this is for all now, and thank you.